enrollment. This session is members in and exiting service. So welcome to our next programming session, whether you're new to this work or you're being cross-trained for professional development or you're a veteran. We're glad you are joining us. And I believe Matt Fisher had mentioned before that roughly 50% of our staff during this conference are new staff. For these people, please don't be concerned with every single nitty-gritty detail. We have resources that you can refer to, like we keep saying. Please contact your portfolio manager. We'd love to help you out and help you digest all of this conference material in the time after the conference. So let's begin. So here's our conference program agenda. We just completed member enrollment and with Lauren, and now you've completed the enrollment process, but we've arrived at members in and exiting service. Tomorrow, again, we'll have an impact and review session. You'll receive a resource that will clarify and be able to have a checklist for all the documents that you need for a member file. And for the session right now, this is our agenda. We'll be talking about timekeeping, suspensions, evaluations, and exits. And we wanted to map out all the parts of today's session and earlier session with key documentation and paperwork needed in a member file. So we've listed out the key pieces of documentation needed for this entire session here with this visual. We'll start with member start date, completing documentation or in eGrants and having that occur within 8 days. You have your member hour logs, change of status forms, final evaluations, and exits. And so I'm just going to highlight that here we are, we're moving right into timekeeping and specifically our hour logs. All right, so a quick activity. Can you all open your chat boxes and name 3 main categorical activities that count as AmeriCorps hours? What are the 3 main activities that count as AmeriCorps hours? Service, training, and Paul, you had the last one as well, fundraising. Education, we also say training. Awesome, thank you guys. So we have our primary and secondary service, and that is our service hours, our training hours, and our service project fundraising hours. What are the activities associated with primary and secondary service? And well, let's first answer that question. Can you put in the chat, what are the activities associated with primary and secondary service? Construction, community service projects, service site. Some programs have other service opportunity or other service tracks as well. There are construction plus activities, but our main focus is construction for most programs. So we have construction, and like I said, other service tracks, health and wellness, digital divide, conservation, recycling. Other service projects would be counted as secondary service, and outside member service hours can be counted as 2 as well. And there's no maximum for primary and secondary service hours. How about training? What are the activities that are associated with training hours? Classroom time, GED, NCCER training, offsite work, speakers. So is there a maximum associated or is there a limit associated with training hours? Would be my second follow-up question, 20%. So we had a total that was given in the chat that would be for that specific slot type, but each slot type abides by the rule of 20% maximum hours for training hours associated with that slot type. So classroom time, leadership development, training, 20% maximum. And how about service project fundraising? What sort of activities are associated with service project fundraising, and is there a limit? Not many of us do service project fundraising activities, so it's limited to the funds for direct service activities. If you're fundraising for a service project, that can be counted as service project fundraising hours. It cannot be general operating funds, and the maximum, like everyone has said, is 10%.
Tori, I had a question.
Sure.
For primary and secondary service, it said outside member time. Is that if they were to do community service outside of Youth Build program?
You should talk to your portfolio manager about that specifically, because you are able to, but it would require a teleservice policy. An example would be that they're creating something at home. Maybe it's due to the changes that happened during COVID, and then they are using whatever they created at home to fill a community need. But it would have to be, you'd have to talk to your portfolio manager, and you'd have to update your policy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I share this visual to talk about the big picture of timekeeping and how it fits with your Youth Build program. All of the time a member spends in the program is Youth Build time, but not all Youth Build time is AmeriCorps time. From the perspective of our funder, CNCS or AmeriCorps, almost all of our members are part-time members. Only a portion of their time will be counted towards AmeriCorps and towards earning an education award. So in this diagram, all the blue and orange boxes are Youth Build time, but only the blue boxes are AmeriCorps time. I raise this because this may be a good diagram to use for your non-AmeriCorps staff, for them to have a better understanding of the relationship and partnership Youth Build has with AmeriCorps. All right, so what can be counted as AmeriCorps time? Can you put this in the chat? We have an acronym that we love to use. Does anyone remember? Thank you, Paul. Burp. All right, thank you, Claudia, Michael. AmeriCorps has explicit prohibited activities. We like to say, on AmeriCorps time, I don't burp. AmeriCorps members cannot participate in any of the activities that provide a direct benefit to businesses, unions, religious organizations, political organizations. And this is good for all of your staff at the program to remember, because they are interacting with AmeriCorps members on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so we are going to try out Mentimeter. I'm going to take us through a game, if I can toggle back. All right, here is the link. All right, so this is our activity. We're going to see if the activities or the situations that are presented can be counted as AmeriCorps time. And so just a reminder, this AmeriCorps time is service, training, and fundraising. Our first question, members are in a math classroom learning algebra. The votes are coming in. Yes, 91% have chosen yes, it does count as AmeriCorps time. Maybe the 7% we're thinking about, if they had reached the 20% rule and they are going over the 20% allotment of hours, then that would not be counted as AmeriCorps time because they've already reached their maximum. Members are registering voters in a low-income community on MLK Day to raise awareness of civic engagement. What do we think? Okay, it's kind of getting close. I mean, not really close, but there are some people that think yes and some people that think no. All right, so for AmeriCorps' purposes, this is a prohibited activity. And we wanted to really highlight this because it is an election year. And so your young people can engage in these sorts of activities, but not on AmeriCorps time and not with AmeriCorps t-shirts or logos or anything that would associate with AmeriCorps. Members are serving with Habitat for Humanity to construct low-income housing. Okay, so we got a lot of yes, no, absolutely not.
Who knew there were so many gifs of David saying no? That's great.
The whole thing is David saying no. I mean, it's tempting. I love David. I would click David, but is the wrong answer here. So yes, Habitat for Humanity is a great partner, and it is service. Members are serving at a church food kitchen, which is open and available to the public. Okay, so this might have thrown some people off just because it's a church and it is a religious institution, but because this is open and available to the public, and assuming that AmeriCorps members are not engaging in any religious related activities and they're just related to service, then this is a yes. Members are able to serve and count those service hours as hours as service. So now Lowe's, a corporation, is sponsoring a community-wide cleanup where members and the community clean and landscape a local park. What do we think? That's correct or absolutely not? All right, so because Lowe's is not receiving a direct benefit from the service that AmeriCorps members are engaging in, this is an allowable activity, and this can be counted as service because it's community-centered and it's meeting the needs of communities. Members are volunteering at the program's annual fundraiser to raise general funds for the organization. Okay, so this is a no. Fundraising activities are only okay when they're directly supporting service projects. So because this is going to a general funds for the organization, it's not specific to a service project, and so that's a no. Members are in a meeting planning for a 9/11 service project. Yes or absolutely not? All right, the members are planning for this service project, planning, reflection, the things that happen before and after a service project activity counts as service. So this is a yes. This next one, we've gotten a few questions about this recently, and members are working inside the Youth Build program to build a dividing wall to enhance their program's space. So we're almost completely divided on this. Yep, we're completely divided. This can be a yes and it can be a no. So yes would be if the members are using this as a training opportunity to learn a new skill, that can be counted as training. If they've already reached their maximum 20% hours towards training, then you wouldn't be able to count this. And so this would be something that would not count as service hours in that situation. All right, so members are volunteering at an auction to raise money for a Veterans Day service project. Totally, or it's a hard pass. All right, so this is a yes. The money will be raised for a service project that members will plan to do on Veterans Day, so yes. And members are in the construction lab learning how to build picnic tables and flower boxes as a learning project. Okay, so this is a yes. So is this training activity or is this a service, primary, secondary service activity? What should we count this as? I like Paul's answer. So yes, it really does depend what happens with the final finished products. If it's going back into the community, you're filling a community need, maybe they're put in a park, maybe they're donated, yes, then that would be a service. But if it's just being used for a learning activity, if they're just being the products are not eventually going anywhere into the community, then that would be a training activity. Members are making masks at home to donate to a local children's hospital. Yep or no? All right, so Dion says yes, and the answer is yes. But then Michael asked, how would we log that? So this is going back to, you would have to check in with your portfolio manager. You would have to update your timekeeping policy and have a teleservice policy. And then this would be an allowable activity as service for your members. Members are handing out water to the community at a gun reform protest. Yeah or no? Yeah, so the majority is correct. This is a no. Again, your members can participate in these activities on their own time, but when they're wearing AmeriCorps logos, having AmeriCorps t-shirts representing the AmeriCorps program, this is not an allowable activity. Members are in the classroom writing a reflection on 9/11 service project. 100% have said yes. This is a straightforward one. Yes. And is this training or is this service? Maybe a couple people can write in the chat if this is training or service. Service, exactly. Members are presenting and discussing with the community their service project experience where they constructed a storybook nature trail for a park. So they're having discussion with the community about their service project. 100% of us have said totally, and that's true. This is a service-related activity, counted as service. Thank you for playing my game. It means so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the memes.
But yeah, while Tori's pulling that up, I just wanted to say, like I did in the chat, many of these things are great as youth-build activities, as things we would want young people to do in their community to promote their leadership and stuff. It's just not with the AmeriCorps logo.
All right, we've gone through our game. And yeah, so most common activities are categorized here on this table. We've talked about them and we've touched on them in the game. And this is a resource that was pulled from one of our resource that I have pulled up here. So it goes into more detail on what is required, what's youth build policy, and some guidance on how to handle common issues around timekeeping. And I just wanted to have a question break. Do we have any questions in the chat, or if there's anyone that wants to ask their question now? Also just note that my question slides are all photos that I've taken in the last 6 months visiting sites, trying to stealthily take pictures at service sites, even though I'm probably not so stealthy. But does anyone recognize this housing unit?
Yeah, it's tough when you have interactions. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times things are going to come up during the year that might be borderline, and you're like, is this going to work or not? Call us. We love to jam on that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Because sometimes things can be figured out or whatever. But yeah, get in touch with us because we can talk all that out with you.
Hey, Tori, I think it's Northern Kentucky.
Yes, you're right. Is that
Yeah.
Melissa?
Yes, I recognize Hank's headband.
Yep. Okay, if there's no questions, we can move on.
Oh, that's a good one from Jay Lopez. If we do an activity at an orphanage in Mexico, does that count like community service? So I can answer that. So AmeriCorps is domestic service. So this has come up before. Strangely enough, like European service. We can't give them service hours for that, but it is an excellent activity that they should be involved in for sure, for sure.
Planning does count, Vinny. It's a good question. For a service activity. Oh, of the Mexico service, probably not. But for a service activity in the United States, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it's community service and it should be fine. But yeah, we've gotten overruled on that in the past. So.
All right, we can move on. Okay, and of course, we always want to bring to your attention our resources we have on our YouTube channel. And so we have created a member hour log video. It's a tutorial of our member hour log. So I won't go into a lot of depth right now on how to use the member hour log, but I will point out specific features of how to use the hour log. Firstly, it's not required to use our template, but if you choose to use something different, it needs to be reviewed by your portfolio manager and updated in your timekeeping policy. Here are the key necessary components to our timesheets. We recommend to organize by month to reduce the required number of signatures. Every day needs to be counted. For even 0 hours per month need to be counted, though this should not happen regularly. And in that case, a member should be suspended if it does. Remember to sign regularly and don't print all of the member hour logs all at once to sign, make sure that you're using blue or black ink for signatures. So these are all the required sections. We have distinguished between service, training, and fundraising at the top. And like we said before, a good reminder is the 20% training hour rule. David had briefly mentioned this, and I believe it came up in Lauren's session as well. No member total hours could be have over 20% training hours upon exit. The rule applies to all members, and the number of hours will vary according to how many hours are required for each member slot. So if programs have different member slots, 450 hours, quarter time slot, or 300 hours, it would be adjusted accordingly. To help you with the 20% rule, the member hour log tracks training hours and percent of total hours earned in this section right here. And then that total is the training hours as subtracted to give you the total hours that can be applied to their service at the bottom there. All right, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. Can you go back to that screen that you were just at?
Mhm.
I guess what's confusing me is the training hour. I know it's got to be 20%. What are these hours though here? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 28, 29, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're putting all the hours that they're here in Youth Build, let's just say. Is that what you're putting on this? And then it automatically calculates the 20% out? Or are we just putting that 20% on here? Because it looks like we're putting them all on here. You understand the question?
Yeah, maybe I can help clarify. So there is an option for you to put just all of the hours on the hour log, and it will cap it when you get to the 20%. And then there is a tab on the hour log for a training hour memo where you discount hours at the end of the member's service. And there's I don't know if we put this video link in here, but I can find it if we don't have it somewhere. But there is like an hour log video that goes through kind of this process. So Michael, I just encourage you to watch that video, and it kind of goes through how to use this tool, and especially focuses on how to make sure you're at 20% when you're exiting young people.
I have these forms, David, obviously. And when I go, we have them saved, but it sounds like the ones that you're putting the data on here have rules and such built into the forms, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you send me a link to that particular one where I have that?
Sure. Yeah, I can send you a link to the most recent hour log.
Okay.
And like I said, there's a video that kind of goes over it as well.
Yeah, I saved the video. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, the link for that video is right in the chat for folks to sort of click on and save.
Okay.
And like we said for tomorrow's session, we will have a list of all the member file documents needed, and one of those will be the member hour log, and so you'll have everything just on one sheet.
And Sherry is saying, she's giving us a little bit of a testimonial here. She used to have to do all these calculations by hand, didn't she, Sherry? Well, maybe she's being shy, but yeah, the hour log does do it for
yes
you.
in the chat.
Yeah, she said yeah in the chat.
Okay.
It's definitely a time saver. You don't have to think about anything. And if you get to the end in your hours, you see your 20% is at 80%, then it allows you to go back and correct. And when you get to the end of it, you even have a certificate you can print out. It's a wonderful thing. Lifesaver.
And last one, anyone recognize your members or your service site? I know this is a hard angle, but this was also captured on one of my visits. Yes, it's Enid. You're right, Natalie.
Now, if we can only get David and LT to take pictures.
Yeah, I'm literally inserting D&D pictures into my presentation tomorrow and being like, oh, that's embarrassing, Tora. You're making me look bad by focusing on the young people in Youth Build, as I should be doing as well.
Terrible at pictures.
Everyone needs a strong education in D&D in order to do this work. So,
No.
okay, so we're going to get there to the person that just asked that question in the chat about evaluations. We're not quite there yet. So here we are. We just finished the member hour logs. And we're moving into change of status, and we're going to hit all these bullets: suspension, compelling personal circumstance, early exit, exit for employment. So we're moving right into suspensions. When a member has a break in service for an extended period of time, yet plans to return and finish the program, they can be suspended in eGrants in the eGrants portal. This effectively freezes their service terms so that when they return, they have the same amount of time to complete service as when they left, and their expected end date will change from what it was originally. For example, if a member is suspended for 3 months, they will have 3 additional months to complete their service hours so that they're able to earn their educational award. Suspensions should be done within 30 days of the action taken at the program. All changes of status, I'll add, should be happen within 30 days within eGrants. And members during suspension do not earn a living allowance or receive benefits during suspension. And
Can you go over that? Can you go over that final point? That final bullet point: processing grants that stalls a member's term should be done within 30 days of program. Does that mean you're talking about 30 days from what? From what date?
From when the suspension occurred at the program with the member, that day of initial suspension, the information should be logged and reported into eGrants within 30 days of that.
So for example, Michael, like somebody hasn't shown up for 2 weeks. And you'd be like, wow, we could suspend them as of August 1st. You would need to do that before the end of August in the eGrant system. That's all. AmeriCorps loves their 30 days. We don't know why, but whenever you need to do something, you usually need to sit down at your computer and do it within 30 days of the actual date.
Saying the last date that I saw them, for example. Is that what you mean?
Whatever day you want to set as their suspension date. So when you go into eGrants, you're going to say they were suspended on a date, and that date and the day that you're actually logged into eGrants, telling eGrants that date, those 2 days need to be within 30 days of each other.
So you're talking about just backdating the suspension date. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, because eGrants timestamps everything you do in that system. They know the time that you're telling the system that something happened, for instance, longer than 30 days ago. And you'll get dinged a little if that starts happening a lot.
When do you think it is appropriate to suspend a member? What are scenarios? Can we type it in the chat? What are scenarios that would be appropriate to suspend a member? No contact, illness, not active, drug charges, medical, out for delivering a baby, moving out of state. I just wanted to clarify that most of these are correct, but we do not suspend a member for repeated minor disciplinary offenses and times when a member should actually be exited for a personal compelling circumstance where they wouldn't be able to come back and serve at the program. These are all our reasons of why we would suspend a member. So again, personal compelling circumstance, program closure, illness, loss of service partner, disciplinary, program determined, but it's not related to minor disciplinary offenses, and designated program break. Maybe there's a break in the program, such as a summer, I'm sorry about that, a summer break or a week off or there's an interruption with a service partner, and consistent absenteeism. How do you suspend a member? If you need to suspend a member, especially if you have not done it before, you should always contact your portfolio manager. All you need to know for now is that you should have a suspension and early exit policy at your program. Your portfolio manager should guide you on creating a policy, and know that there is a form for suspensions and reinstatements. We wanted to elaborate more on absenteeism. AmeriCorps or CNCS states that periods where a member serves no hours should be rare. So we don't want to see consecutive months of 0 hours served, because that is not a rare occurrence. So we have multiple months of 0 hours. That seems to be a consistent issue. We need something to be a rare occurrence. So we also want you to be aware of Youth Build USA's guidance around suspension and early exits. You are required to have a written policy on how you will handle early exits and suspensions to ensure consistent and fair practices for all members. You should also have language on your policy in your member service agreement around absenteeism. There was stock language in our template, and most of you are using our templates, so it's built into there as well. These are some decision points that you would at your own program would have to be making. What is the maximum length of absenteeism that triggers a suspension? Who is following up after a suspension? After how many days that a member's suspension will you decide that a member should be exited?
Tori, I had a question. For the absenteeism, you said 30 days. Does that have to be consecutive? And I'm just thinking, for instance, if they were out 10 months over in like 10 months in April, 10 days in April, 10 days in May, 10 days in June, or does it have to be like the 30 days in a row?
I'm going to say, in my other portfolio managers can chime in, that it's really up to you as a program and like what is going on with this specific member. If you know that their situation will not change and it will become increasingly difficult for them to earn enough hours to complete their education award within that year time frame, then it would probably be best to suspend. But again, I think it would just have to be a decision made on the program level of like understanding exactly what's going on with this member.
Thank you.
All right, so why we suspend? The bottom line is it's a good practice that is aligned with AmeriCorps regulations, and it gives a member the best chance of completing their service. And so we like to think of it as a necessary tool to support our members and support our staff, our programs, and definitely not our punitive one. Suspending a member starts by updating their member file. So these are the actions that you would take. So we have a member file. Like I said before, we have forms for everything. So of course we have a suspension and reinstatement form. While a member is suspended, it is not necessary to fill out a member hour log during their suspension time frame. Within 30 days of the first day of when the program has decided to enact suspension, a staff member must update the portal and eGrants to change their status. Same goes for reinstatement. Once they are reinstated, again, use the 30-day window that AmeriCorps requires. And then the last step is that all these same actions should happen in DYB as well. When you are suspending and reinstating your member, please do that in DYB. So we have another question break and another program that I visited. Do we have any questions? Yes, that's Enid again.
So do we need to capture the printout of DYB as well to document suspension in the member file? No, you don't need to print out of DYB anything. You want to have the suspension form printed in the member file and record the suspension in DYB, but you don't need to print anything out from DYB. You're welcome.
All right, great. If there's not any more questions, we'll move right along into evaluations. So we've discussed timekeeping, member hour logs. We've discussed change of status, suspensions, personal compelling circumstances, early exits, and we will discuss evaluations. All right, so while the midterm evaluation is required for full-time and half-time members, it is not required for other slot types. And a final evaluation is the one thing that is required for all members. And I just wanted to reiterate, it's required for every single member, a final evaluation. This applies to members regardless of when they finished or if they finished at all. The evaluation should be completed once the member has completed their service term, not before. This is one of the most consistent findings that we see when we come out and monitor programs and look through files. This is important to remember because a satisfactory final evaluation is a requirement in order to be eligible for a subsequent term of service. So failure to do this could be putting a member's second term or third or however many terms that member would like to serve in jeopardy. And so again, the best practice is to utilize your existing evaluation procedure. If you don't have one, you can use our template, and we do have evaluation templates that we will connect you to and definitely connect you to tomorrow. The requirements for evaluations are that includes the number of hours served that the member completed, and it's dated by the member and has a staff signature. And so that was our quick bit on evaluations, and we are moving right into exits. And here's where we are on our flow chart. Before we start exiting a member, you should check these 3 checks. So you should check, confirm, and evaluate. Check that all timesheets are signed and dated. Confirm that you are well within the 20% rule, and evaluate. You have completed a final evaluation for your member. And maybe it's a full-time member or half-time member, and you also have a midterm evaluation. So we have a AmeriCorps exit video that I believe someone will be putting in the chat for you to watch later, that goes into a lot more detail than we will go into today about how to exactly do this in eGrants, but I will kind of summarize the points on how to go step by step. Remember that members have 1 full year to serve in the program, regardless of your program cycle or structure. That said, the end date is the date they completed their hours and or other requirements or exited early. The date that they actually exit does not have to be their originally expected exit date noted in DYB or the portal. It can be earlier, but should never be later unless they were suspended. So you have to remain within, they have to have a year-long service, except for in situations where a member was suspended, but they can end early if they complete their required hours. So the end date simply is the last day the member earned AmeriCorps hours. Can be different for each member, regardless of if they're in the same program. Does not need to correspond with a youth build graduation date. There's one final important note about the exit process, and that is the requirement around timing. So you probably guessed it. Does anyone know what would be the timing that AmeriCorps requires you to update exit information? Great, yes. Any changes of status, including exits, is 30 days. Thank you, everyone. You've been paying attention. And you have 30 days after the completion date to get that information into eGrants and complete the member exit. It's important to note that eGrants does record this activity, and eGrants records the day that you exit a member in eGrants compared to the completion date you enter on their final exit page. And this can be monitored during site visits, and it's something that we will check on, and we will suggest you getting in your exits earlier, or and it's definitely something that AmeriCorps, if they were to audit, will be looking at as well. All right, so there's 4 types of exits from AmeriCorps. When members are eligible for certain types of exits, there's a full education award, which is a successful exit when the member has completed all their hours with their service year, within their service year, or maybe they've extended due to suspension and reinstatement, and no additional documentation is needed for this type of exit because this is a successful exit. And exiting without an award indicates that they did not complete their hours or were removed from the program early. And there's some documentation that is required for that for specific circumstances. And here is our early withdrawal and release form to document members leaving without finishing the program. We have this template that many of you are using. Additionally, programs may write a letter or a memo that would also be sufficient in detailing why a member has been removed from programming. And this form, like David had alluded to earlier, I believe at the bottom of our member hour log, there's an exit helper build out tab. And this form can be found there, and it helps tell the story of why the member did not complete their service. And it's useful for both programs and also for future monitoring officials. All right, and the partial award for employment, the purpose of this next option is to allow members who have otherwise been successful in the program to accept job opportunities that would prevent them from completing their hours and still earn an education award proportionate to the hours that they have served. This is not an option for full-time members, but it's open to all other types of member time slots.
Tori, could you back up one slide? Was that what you wanted to see, Jamal, the early withdrawal release form, or are we talking about the first kind of exit? Okay, well, we'll assume he got what he needed. If not, again, we're going to send all this out to you guys, so you'll have it.
This was it, Matt. Thanks.
Yep. All right.
Also, I just skipped over this point as well on the slide that the release for cause, if in this section of the form here, it should align with a program's, well, it needs to align with the program's disciplinary process that's in their policies and within the member service agreement. And important to note, it is not early release, and with early withdrawal, members do not receive an education award. Okay, so we were at partial award for employment, and this is for members that would otherwise be successful in the program to allow them to accept job opportunities that would prevent them from completing their service hours. And it does allow them to receive an education award, but not at the same rate that they would if they were to fully complete their service. So can we write in the chat how many hours members need, or what percent of hours members need to complete to be exited for employment? 50% is correct. And I'm assuming that E. Thompson is has a quarter time slot, and then 50% would be 250 hours for their members. So we are correct. Again, we're documenting this process within 30 days in eGrants. So CNCS or AmeriCorps allows for this type of exit if your program includes securing employment for its members as a performance measure. This is an option for us as a youth build program. Members who secure employment and must exit still get a prorated education award based on the hours that they completed, 50%. So this way we avoid punishing otherwise successful participants of our program if they receive a job. This can assist programs in having a better education award attainment. That's one of our performance measures that we're tracking. So this helps programs meet that. We also want to caution programs not to abuse or overuse exiting members for employment. What I mean by that is we want you to be a true Youth Build AmeriCorps program that pushes members to earn their GED or high school equivalency and have members receive full education awards by completing all their service hours. We don't want to promote or push youth into employment too soon without reaping all the benefits of our programming, but we all know that for many members, they need to get into a job or work fast, and at least we're able to award them with a partial award. Also, the award for a 300-hour slots or 450-hour slots is pretty small and it's taxable, and we want our members to be able to receive the most or the highest amount of the education award as possible, and that would be exiting them successfully with a full education award. So this is exit for employment is a successful exit. All right, so we're moving into partial awards for personal compelling circumstances. We talked about a few examples of this earlier in the presentation. Using the chat, can we think of any other personal compelling circumstances? These would be circumstances that would be beyond a participant's control. Medical reasons, moves out of the program target area, death in the family, illness, COVID. All right, so here's our list of what we have compiled for personal compelling circumstances. These are very specific situations that would prevent a member from being able to finish their term with their program. Generally, those circumstances are outside the member's control, like I said. If a situation like this arises, you can move straight to an exit or can try a suspension first. I will also say that please check in with your portfolio manager around COVID-19 service disruptions. In limited circumstances that were listed, members who have to leave their service before their term is completed can earn partial education awards, and that is released for personal compelling circumstances. Members must earn at least 15% of their hours. We also must document this, and we have a form here, and we must also attach a backup documentation of proof that the circumstance existed. Best sort of proof is third-party documentation. Although it may not always be available, we encourage programs to do their best. And we also highly recommend that, again, you check in with your portfolio manager so we help you document the personal compelling circumstance. So again, for exits for employment or personal compelling circumstance, in these cases that initiate an early exit for a partial education award, the best way to go is to contact your AmeriCorps portfolio manager to initiate the early exits. These can be tricky. We can go over review documentation. We can help support you before you take the final steps and hard to reverse steps of inputting that information into eGrants and exiting that member. Okay, we have time for some questions.
So yeah, there have been a lot of questions, especially around documentation. So Caroline, like when somebody requires a compelling personal circumstance exit for a medical condition, I mean, it's not legal in a lot of places, in a lot of cases, to require like proof of pregnancy, right? But I think if you work with the young person, you're like, hey, I could get you this benefit if you could give me some sort of documentation, doctor's note, something like that, case notes from a caseworker they're working with. But yeah, you can't really require that, right? So I think whatever you can do, the best you can to get some sort of third-party documentation over and above whatever, form that we require is good to do in any of these cases. E. Thompson was asking about consecutive partial awards for members who are exited for like a job or for a compelling personal circumstance. Again, I think it goes back to the reasonable person test, right? So let's say Johnny joins us in January, has to cut out in June because he's got a job. Job doesn't work out, so maybe he comes back to do another term of service 6 months later or a year later. That would make sense. But yeah, if we were to look in the eGrants portal and see that Johnny got 4 partial awards right in a row, that's not going to look great. So yeah, that's why I said possibly. But again, whenever these situations come up, we're happy to talk to you about, the documentation and, if something makes sense, that sort of thing. So something new just came in. Great. Yeah, those were the main questions, unless people have more.
I have a question. Does the program team member from the program of this picture recognize their program? I'm gonna give them a hard time if they don't. Okay, this is Youth Build Gary.
I'm surprised they use the yellow or the orange uniforms. We did that once for the t-shirts that we give out, and everybody complained that it looked like they were on like a jail work team. So we had to change the color.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, I wanted to say thank you for joining us. If we could just put the evaluation in the chat, that would be great. Someone has that handy. Thank you, David.
Oh, you beat me, David.